Welcome to the latest edition of Out of the Mouth of Babes Bible Series. Today is August the 15th, Saturday, 2020. And my name is Brandon Israel. I will be doing the teaching, and this is my son, Brandon Israel Jr. He will be doing the reading today. This is actually the second lesson that we're recording this afternoon. Being that neither one of these lessons are too long, I figured I can get two in. The title of the second lesson, or the title of the lesson we're about to deal with right now, is something I titled, In the Face of Hypocrisy. I repeat, In the Face of Hypocrisy. And that's something that we commonly read in the Bible. You know, we have quite a few examples of hypocrisy being shown throughout the Bible. You know, it's more common than we would think, but the Bible gives us examples of it, not just so we can understand what it is, but most importantly, I should say, so we can understand how to respond and how to deal with a person coming from a hypocritical standpoint. Because, when a person is being a hypocrite, well, first of all, I'm going to tell you the definition of a hypocrite in case you don't know. The definition that we got out the dictionary is, it actually holds two definitions. It's a person who puts on a fake appearance of virtue or religion. I repeat, a person who puts on a fake appearance of virtue or religion. So that would be somebody who would, fit the category of seeming to be religious, but behind closed doors, they're not that religious. And there's a lot of people like that in the world today. And there were people like that in the Bible during the times of the apostles, the prophets, disciples, everybody. It was people that feigned God, but truly wasn't really dedicated to God. And the second definition is a person who acts in contradiction to his or her state of beliefs or feelings. I repeat. A person who acts in contradiction to his or her stated beliefs or feelings. I wrote that wrong. Stated beliefs. So what is that saying? That's somebody pretty much operating in the spirit of guile. Something the Bible warns you of. Somebody who's telling you one thing, but ultimately doing another. Somebody who's being, for the lack of a better word, a coward. Some of the hypocritical things I've seen out of people have showed me that a hypocritical person can be the worst type of coward, to be honest, because they're hiding behind the truth, or they're putting up a false appearance to hide behind. They would make you feel safe. They would make you feel as if you can trust them, but in all actuality, the true nature of their ambition is in total violation of that. There is no trust. There is no morals. Morals become violated. And most importantly, in most cases, it's unexpected. You don't always necessarily approach relationships with people in a manner of, I think you're going to lie to me, or I think you're going to set me up. That's not how we should approach, our interactions with other men and women on earth. But in some cases, people are hypocrites. So that's what we're going to deal with today. Like I said again, the title of it is In the Face of Hypocrisy. And we're going to use some examples out the Bible to show us how righteous people responded to it. Because, like I said before, dealing with a hypocrite can be very traumatizing. Very traumatizing. Because your trust has been violated. And that, in a lot of cases, will make you, want to attack. But as the Lord teaches us throughout the entire Bible, we have to behave wisely. So that's what we're going to deal with. In the face of hypocrisy. And we're going to start this lesson up in Psalms, the 64th chapter. Psalms, the 64th chapter. Psalm 64. And I'm going to have my son start reading at verse 1. Psalms, the 64th chapter. And when you get there, my son, start reading at verse 1.
Hear my voice, O God, and my prayer. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity.
Okay, so now pay attention to what he say right there at verse 2. He says, hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity. So why is it secret? As a hypocrite normally is, they work behind the scenes. They're not going to tell you they're a hypocrite. That's something they're going to cover up. Like I said, they're operating in the spirit of guile when they are operating as a hypocrite. So everything is always a secret. Everything is always closed mouth. Certain people know, certain people don't know. Kind of like how they did Jesus. And we're going to use that as a good example. Keep going though.
Who whet their tongue like a sword, and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words.
Yes, because that's normally how a hypocrite operates with their mouths. That's usually how they perform that type of action. A whole lot of talking. And we need to learn to frame our words in a way that we are not, coming from a hypocritical standpoint, or even giving somebody a false idea of what we truly feel or what we truly think. And that's even, that's not as going as deep as ultimately trying to set somebody up to fail, But we shouldn't mislead people. We shouldn't knowingly mislead anybody. So that's what he's talking about right here when he says, who whet their tongue like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words. So they with their words are actually trying to do you harm. They're actually trying to cause you pain, cause you hurt. Keep going.
That they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not.
Shooting secrets. It's always a secret. It's always a sense of cowardice behind a hypocrite. A hypocrite rarely has the gall to put their problem in the forefront. They would smile in your face, but ultimately they mean you hurt. So that's what he's saying when he says that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. Go ahead.
They encourage themselves in the evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them?
Laying snares. What is that? Laying traps. Trying to set you up to fail. Go ahead.
They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search.
You see that they search out iniquities. And that's what we're going to get from what they was doing with Jesus. Even if somebody has a fault, it's not your job to find somebody else's fault. By you doing that, you are a hypocrite. You should be searching out your own faults. But that's what they do. That's what a coward does. They search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search. They search far and wide in your business. They digging deep. They asking questions, doing interviews, cross-references, comments, and statements. They private out when it comes to your personal business. But when it comes to their own, they not that concerned with their own personal issues. They're more concerned with yours. Hence the definition of a hypocrite. Go ahead. Read verse 6 again.
They search out iniquities. They accomplish diligent search, both the inward thought of every one of them, and the heart is deep. But God shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly shall they be wounded. So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away.
Okay, but so who's ultimately going to fix the hypocritical people of the world today? That's the first lesson we have to learn and understand. God is going to deal with it. We don't have to worry about, like I did in my previous lesson, avenging ourselves or trying to figure out who's a hypocrite and who's not. Because the hypocrite is always going to show in time anyway. That's always going to be something that is going to be easily recognizable once they put their snare or their trap is actually coming to fruition. You're going to be able to notice that. But at the same time, you have to recognize that God is going to deal with them. And in almost all cases, it's a ploy of Satan to get you off your square. Get you to do something that you shouldn't be doing. Because somebody else is wicked does not mean you need to do the same thing or follow the same path for the most part. So as always, we got to let God be the avenger and deal with the people that's doing things of that nature. Let's go to Deuteronomy the 27th chapter. Deuteronomy the 27th chapter. And we're going to start reading at verse 24. Deuteronomy 27 and 24. When you get there, my son, go ahead.
Cursed be he that smiteth his neighbor secretly. And all the people shall say, Amen.
Amen. That's what the book say. That's what Moses had the people chant. Cursed be he that smiteth his neighbor secretly. See, if you go hit your neighbor in the mouth, don't hit him in the mouth. Don't be open about it. Don't be a coward. Don't operate in a feminine mindset. And like my brother said, we use feminine because women do the most talking. You know, not that it's a slight toward women. But, you know, women are known to do a little more conversation than men are. Not these days, though. Not these days. That's what you would think. But that's what he's telling you right here. Cursed be he that smiteth his neighbor secretly, and all the people shall say, Amen. See, that's worse than hitting your neighbor openly. You know, hit your neighbor in a manner where he don't expect it. That's cowardice. That's the way of a hypocrite. Because if your neighbor knew, or if you made it known that you had a problem with your neighbor, when the hammer came down and when you brought the hammer down, it wouldn't have been no secret. Your neighbor would have been expecting it. But if you operating in guile, you operating in malice, you operating behind the scenes, you operate in a hypocritical mindset, yeah, it's going to be a secret. Because you probably feigned love, or you probably feigned friendship when you knew all along that was not the case. You knew all along that wasn't the case. So cursed be that man that does that. Proverbs the 25th chapter. Proverbs the 25th chapter. And we're going to read a couple verses here. Proverbs 25. And when you get there, my son, start reading at verse 8. Proverbs the 25th chapter. And when you get there, start reading at verse 8.
Then the elders of his city shall call him and speak unto him.
Where you at? You got Deuteronomy. Proverbs, sir. No problem. Proverbs, the 25th chapter. Let my reader get there. And we're going to start again, this time at verse 8. Proverbs 25 and verse 8. When you get there, go ahead.
Go not forth hastily to strive, lest thou know what to do in the end thereof, when thy neighbor hath put thee to shame.
Okay, you see that? He said, go not forth hastily to strive. So don't be rushing into conflict. You shouldn't rush into conflict unless you know what to do in the end thereof. If you don't know the end of the conflict, you might not need to rush into it. Because as they say right here, your neighbor might put you to shame. Go ahead.
Debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself, and discover not a secret to another.
You see that? Debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself, and discover not a secret to another. See, that's the problem we have today. You know, somebody will find out somebody else's fault, or somebody might even share a fault. And instead of that person speaking to this person in a manner of, you know, well, you probably don't want to take that approach, or even rebuke, or doing anything on a one-on-one level with somebody else, the first thing a hypocritical person does is get on the phone and call everybody else. Want to make it public, want to make it known, want to keep it a secret. You know, they're not going to do it in a manner, they're not going to stand up in front of you and in front of everybody else and say their piece. Nah, they're gonna pass secrets as a secret. Because that's what a coward does. That's what a hypocrite does. They hide behind a false image of friendship or false image of piety or whatever you want to call it, whatever it may seem. They're hiding behind that. Their true nature themselves, they're not going to reveal that. They're not going to reveal the vileness that's ultimately going on in their head. Read that verse again.
Debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself, and discover not a secret to another.
Discover not a secret to another. Back up to the 11th chapter of Proverbs. So if your neighbor share a secret or a fault with you, or whatever it may be, or you find out a secret or a fault of one of your neighbors, you know, you take that to him. You take that to him. You don't go about spreading it. Because now you're being a hypocrite. You wouldn't want nobody to do that to you. Proverbs, the 11th chapter. And when you get there, my brother, start reading, or just read verse 9. Proverbs 11 and verse 9. When you get there, go ahead.
An hypocrite with his mouth destroyeth his neighbor, but through knowledge shall the just be delivered.
The hypocrite with his mouth destroyeth his neighbor. See, that's why, you know, a lot of things that happen when somebody's being hypocritical or being a hypocrite. In a lot of cases, it becomes almost physical if you don't catch yourself. Because somebody in most instances is doing you a lot of harm. Because like I said, in most cases, there's a level of trust that was betrayed. There's a level of trust, or there's a deep-seated rooted of lying that's been going on. And people easily take offense to that. They take offense to that. But we have to understand that no matter what another person does, no matter how hurtful it may seem or how hurtful they may have planned something to end up with you, that the Lord is going to deal with it, and you have to maintain your cool and behave wisely. Regardless, you got to behave wisely. And we're going to get a great example of that. Let's go to one more spot before we get the example. And let's go to, let's go to Job, the 20th chapter. Job, the 20th chapter. Job 20. And when you get there, we're going to read one verse. That verse is 5. Job, the 20th chapter. And when you get there, read verse 5.
That the triumph of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment.
You see that? It says the triumph of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment. So that's why we don't have to get bent out of shape. That's why it doesn't have to get physical. That's why you don't have to try to get back or get even. Or even try to, in most cases, make your point and defend yourself. Because that's only going to last a moment. The Lord is going to turn that foolishness right back around on them. They're going to have their own issues that they got to deal with. They're going to have their own problems that's going to arise. Because the Lord sees that and the Lord hates that. The Lord truly hates when a person is being a hypocrite to his neighbor. That's one of the main things that God has warned us not to do. The Bible simply says, let your yea be yea and your nay be nay. You know, we just read, talk directly to your neighbor. What the Bible says, open rebuke is better than secret love. You know, God don't like when you operate in guile, or you operate as if, you know, you're not being 100% truthful. Because then you put the other person in a position of inferiority, because they may be sharing things with you, thinking that they can trust you, and ultimately they can't, because you're a hypocrite. So we got to be careful about that. Let's go to 1 Samuel. We're going to get a good example of it. Let's go to 1 Samuel, the 18th chapter. We're going to read the story. We're going to read about the story of David. We're going to read the story of David. Story of David. And like I said, hypocrite has two definitions. It's somebody who's falsely claiming to be religious, and it's also somebody who's putting up a fake sense of what their true motives actually are. And in most cases, almost all, you know, they can be, well, not almost all, but in a lot of cases, a hypocrite can be a religious person that's doing both things. So you shouldn't be shocked by that. Because if somebody claims to be religious and they operate in hypocrisy, then obviously their religion is in vain. So they are actually honoring both definitions of it ultimately. Well, I say 1 Samuel, the 18th chapter. And when you get there, start reading at verse 10. 1 Samuel 18 and verse 10. When you get there, go ahead.
And it came to pass on the morrow that the evil spirit from God came upon Saul, and he prophesied in the midst of the house. And David played with his hand, as at other times, and there was a javelin in Saul's hand. And Saul cast the javelin, for he said, I will smite David even to the wall with it. And David avoided out of his presence twice.
Okay, so now David, this is the story about David, and by this time David had already made somewhat of a name for himself. You know, he had already killed Goliath. He was still a young man, but he had already killed Goliath, and he was a well-known musician of his day. And Saul was dealing with an evil spirit, you know, just like all hypocrites are dealing with an evil spirit. And he got beside himself for a minute and tried to hit David with a javelin, which is like a spear. Tried to spear him. Threw it at him. David got up out that jam though. Keep going.
And Saul was afraid of David, because the Lord was with him, and was departed from Saul. Therefore Saul removed him from him, and made him his captain over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. And David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him.
You see that? Now David got a guy throwing javelins at him. Got a guy throwing javelins at him. The king of Israel is throwing javelins at him. You know, somebody who's claiming to be his friend. Somebody who's claiming to have love for him. Even here, like, you know, what we just read, Saul was afraid of him because the Lord was with him, and was departed and was departed from Saul. Therefore Saul removed him from him and made him a captain over 1,000. So you done gave this brother a bogus promotion. You don't want to make him no captain over 1,000. You don't even like him. But see, because David hasn't actually done anything to Saul, see, Saul has to operate in the spirit of guile. He has to ultimately be a hypocrite when he knows, he already knows that he has a problem with David, to the point that he wants David dead. What verse you at? 15?
Yeah.
Keep up with your verses. Start reading that verse 15. Go ahead.
Wherefore, when Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of him.
Okay, let's get down at the same time to verse 20 and keep going.
And Michal, Saul's daughter, Saul's daughter, loved David, and they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. And Saul said, I will give him her, that she may be a snare to him, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. Wherefore Saul said to David, Thou shalt this day be my son-in-law, and the one of the twain.
You see this? You see how he's hiding his true intentions? He is about to marry his daughter off to a guy and make David his son-in-law just so he can get David killed. Just so he can throw David. He believes Michal is going to throw him off his square and he's going to end up dying in battle. That's what he believes. That's what he's talking about here. He said, and Saul said, I will give him her, that she may be a snare to him, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. So even to the point of marrying off his daughter, he's being a hypocrite. He don't care for the well-being of his daughter's marriage. He's trying to get his daughter's new husband or future husband ultimately killed. That's the whole point of it. If he wasn't trying to kill David, then he wouldn't have gave him a call to him. What verse you at?
Verse 22.
Go ahead.
And Saul commanded his servant, saying, Commune with David secretly, and say.
You see how it's always a secret? It's always some under the wraps type stuff. It ain't never out in the open. It's always a secret. It's always a murmur. It's always a whisper. It's always, let me talk to you in this corner, brother. It's always that cowardly conversation. All the time. Go ahead, read that verse again.
And Saul commanded his servant, saying, Commune with David secretly, and say, Behold, the king hath delight in thee, and all his servants love thee. Now therefore be the king's son-in-law.
You see that? And then he got them lying. The king have delight in thee. If I was there, I'd be like, I don't see how you just threw a javelin at me a few days ago. There ain't much delight in that. Ain't much delight in that at all. But he's painting this false sense of friendship, this false sense of love, when actually he's being a hypocrite because he means David deadly harm. Deadly harm. Go ahead.
And Saul's servant spake those words in the ear of David. And David said, Seemeth it to a light thing that be a king to be a king's son-in-law, seeing that I am a poor man and lightly esteemed? And the servants of Saul told him, saying, On this manner spake David. And Saul said, Thus shall ye say to David, The king desireth not any dowry, but 100 foreskins of the Philistines, to be avenged of the king's enemies. But Saul thought to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines.
You see that? That was his whole intent, was to get David killed in war. He had no other intent, and he was going to sacrifice his daughter's virtue to do so. See, a hypocrite, they ain't got no morals. See, once you start operating as a hypocrite, morals go out the window. Values go out the window. All that stuff goes out the window. Everything you talk, believe, and preach goes out the window. Because now Satan has got wrapped up in your mind so much that you don't even know which way you really want to go. You're going to jump on any opportunity to cause somebody some harm. Whatever opportunity presents itself, you're going to take. and try to use to your benefit or to bring the outcome that you want to come to pass. What verse you at?
Verse 26.
Go ahead.
And when his servants told David these words, it pleased David well to be the king's son-in-law, and the days were not expired. Wherefore David arose and went, he and his men, and slew the Philistines 200 men. And David brought their foreskins, and they gave them in full tale to the king, that he might be the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal, his daughter, to wife. And Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him. And Saul was yet the more afraid of David. And Saul became David's enemy continually.
You see that? Saul became David's enemy continually. Not openly, but continually. It was non-stop. Continually. It never ends for a hypocrite. It's never over. You got to pay attention. Go ahead.
Then the princes of the Philistines went forth, and it came to pass, after they went forth, that David behaved himself more wisely than all the servants of Saul, so that his name was much set by.
What did David do? He behaved himself more wisely. See, that's what you got to do when you're dealing with a hypocrite. You got to cover all your bases, because ultimately, they're setting traps for you. And the trap they setting for you may be to draw out some form of anger or some form of response from you. So all you can do is cover your bases and make sure that you ain't making a mistake. You're not giving them reason to blaspheme for the most part. And that's what David did. He covered his bases, he did his job, he kept his head down, and he kept it pushing. He didn't try to meet fire with fire. Because now you're getting back and forth, you trying to set traps with a hypocrite, and you're not a hypocrite, then you're going to lose that battle. You're going to lose that battle because he used to lying. He used to hiding his true feelings behind a smile. See, a true servant of God shouldn't be like that. Let's go right into the 19th chapter of Samuel and keep going.
And Saul spake to Jonathan his son, and to all his servants, that they should kill David.
Okay, so now Saul, now he's finna hire some help. Now he gonna let everybody know, like, man, we gotta kill this dude. So he gonna talk to people that's close to him, his son included. Go ahead.
But Jonathan, Saul's son, delighted much in David. And Jonathan told David, saying, Saul my father seeketh to kill thee. Now therefore, I pray thee, take heed to thyself unto the morning, and abide in a secret place, and hide thyself. And I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where thou art, and I will commune with my father of thee, and what I see that I will tell thee.
Okay, go ahead.
And Jonathan spake good of David unto Saul his father, and said unto him, let not the king sin against his servant, against David, because he hath not sinned against thee, and because his works have been to thee were very good. Okay, so Jonathan telling his father, David ain't did nothing to you. David ain't did nothing but what you asked him to do. He ain't sinned against you, so don't sin against him. Go ahead. For he did put his life in his hand, and slew the Philistine. And the Lord wrought a great salvation for all Israel. Thou sawest it, and didst rejoice. Wherefore then wilt thou sin against innocent blood to slay David without a cause? And Saul hearkened unto the voice of Jonathan, and Saul sware, as the Lord liveth, he shall not be slain. Spoken truly like a hypocrite, because he didn't mean that. See, he was David's enemy continually. He just telling Jonathan that because he see Jonathan is not on the program. So yeah, he's going to sit here and lie in the name of God. As the Lord liveth, he shall not be slain. But that's what a hypocrite do. They're going to disguise what they're doing from your friends. I got a friend now who, whenever I have a problem, he tells me all the time. He said, nobody going to tell me. I'm your friend. And vice versa. Somebody got a problem with him, they ain't going to tell me because they know I'm his friend. So David, knowing that his own son has a friendly affection toward David, he has to disguise his true intentions from even his own son, as a hypocrite can do. Family doesn't stop hypocrisy. Trust and believe that. Where you at, bro? Verse 7. Go ahead. And Jonathan called David, and Jonathan shewed him all those things. And Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence as in times past. And there was war again, and David went out and fought with the Philistines, and slew them with a great slaughter. And they fled from him. And the evil spirit from the Lord was upon Saul, as he sat in his house with his javelin in his hand, and David played with his hand. And Saul sought to smite David even to the wall with the javelin. But he slipped away out of Saul's presence, and he smote the javelin into the wall. And David fled and escaped that night.
So Saul still got it in his mind to kill him. Whenever this evil spirit kicks in, he's throwing these javelins. So now it's the second time he threw a javelin at David. Go ahead.
Saul also sent messengers unto David's house to watch him and to slay him in the morning. And Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, If thou save not thy life tonight, tomorrow thou shalt be slain.
See what happened to all that as the Lord liveth? See, as my son say all the time, that was all cap. That was all cap. He didn't mean none of that. He just putting up a front. He got an image to uphold. That's all that was. He didn't mean none of that. So not only is he still throwing javelins at David, but now he's sitting around, he got people sitting outside his house waiting for him to come out in the morning to kill him. Luckily, he had a wife that told him what the deal was. Go ahead.
So Michal led David down through a window, and he went and fled and escaped. And Michal took an image and laid it in the bed, and put a pillow of goat's hair for his bolster, and covered it with a cloth. And when Saul sent messengers to take David, she said, He is sick. And Saul sent the messengers again to see David, saying, Bring him up to me in the bed, that I might slay him. And when the messengers were come in, behold, there was an image in the bed, with a pillow of goat's hair for his bolster. And Saul said unto Michal, Why hast thou deceived me so, and sent away my enemy, that he is escaped?
He said, Why hast thou deceived me so, and sent away my enemy, that he is escaped? Go ahead.
And Michal answered Saul. He said unto me, Let me go. Why should I kill thee?
Okay, so in other words, she said David threatened her life for the most part. And you know, obviously she was lying, but you know, she got to cover her own behind right now because she didn't lie to the king. Go ahead.
So David fled and escaped, and came to Samuel to Ramah, and told him all that Saul had done to him. And he and Samuel went in and dwelt in Naioth.
Okay, so now David ran. He had to get up out that jam, and he ran to what Samuel, the prophet Samuel, was at in Ramah. Okay, we're going to skip to save some more time. You can read the whole story on your own. Let's go into the 20th chapter of 1 Samuel. And when you get there, start reading that verse 1. The 20th chapter of 1 Samuel and verse 1. Just to tell you a little bit that happened. Saul chased him there, but it was to no avail. So now David is running from where he at now. Go ahead.
And David fled from Naioth and Ramah, and came and said before Jonathan, What have I done? What is mine iniquity? And what is my sin before thy father, that he seeketh my life?
So now he come back holler at his boy, because now Saul is chasing him all over town. And he asks Jonathan, like, man, what did I do? What did I do to your father that has him against me, set against me so bad? He's trying to kill me. But remember, Saul is a hypocrite. So he's not letting everybody know what he's up to. Jonathan is unaware of it. From the time he found out Jonathan wasn't with the foolishness, Jonathan was out the loop. They being a hypocrite. You ain't got to get caught up with that. Go ahead.
Therefore, judge nothing before the time.
Therefore, judge nothing before the time. See, that's what hypocrites make the mistake of doing. They judge things too early. They judge things too soon. They judge things unrighteous. That's why he say, judge nothing before the time. You don't know how the Lord is operating. You don't know what he got going on behind the scenes. You have no idea. You have no clue. All you know is you don't like it. Or it don't fit your agenda. Or it looks bad to you. But if it does look bad to you, then you need to tell your neighbor. Tell your brother. Tell your sister. Don't go revealing secrets. Don't set secret traps. Don't act privately and under the cover with your brother and sister. Because you're going to find yourself in the lake of fire doing that. And when somebody does that, don't meet them with that same energy. You understand the trouble that they getting themselves in, and you do the opposite, like David did. He behaved himself more wisely than all Saul's servants. Read that verse again, verse 5. I'm sorry.
Therefore, judge nothing before the time, until the Lord come, who both will bring to the light the hidden things of darkness, and will make manifest the counsels of the hearts. And then shall every man have praise of God. Then shall every man
have his praise of God. When the Lord come back, he's going to show who was right, who was wrong, who was good, who was bad, who was whatever you might want them to be. The Lord is going to be the ultimate judge because he's the only righteous judge on the planet, or that we have to even look forward to. And I hope you got some understanding in the name of Jesus. Till next time. Jonathan was like, nah, Pops, that ain't right. From that point on, Jonathan ain't getting no more information about David. So now David coming to holler at him, and he said, what did I do that your father is trying so hard to kill me? Go ahead.
And he said unto him, God forbid, thou shalt not die. Behold, my father will do nothing either great or small, but that he will show it to me.
The lies you tell. You think he won't do nothing great or small unless he show it to you. But when he trying to do some hurt to somebody that you care about, I'm like, he ain't gonna show that to you. He gonna keep that under wraps. He gonna keep that under wraps. Go ahead.
And why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so.
So Jonathan, for the lack of a better word, don't believe what David is saying. And watch what David said. Go ahead.
And David swore, moreover, and said, Thy father certainly knoweth that I have found grace in thine eyes. And he said, Let not Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth,
Read that again. Start it over. Verse 3. Slow down.
And David swore moreover, and said, Thy father certainly knoweth that I have found grace in thine eyes. He said, Let not Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly, as the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, there is but a step between me and death.
You see that? David say, yeah, he know we cool. Why would he tell you that? He ain't gonna tell you nothing. He gonna keep that. He gonna keep his true intentions involving me under wraps. He said, but as sure as thy soul liveth, he said, there ain't nothing but a step between me and death. If I step the wrong way, I'm a dead man if your father have it his way. Keep going.
Then said Jonathan unto David, Whatsoever thy soul desireth it, I will even do it for thee.
Mm-hmm.
And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king and meat, but let me go, that I might hide myself from the field until the third day at even.
Read that again. I ain't catch that. Start at verse 5 again. Slow down.
And David said unto Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king and meat.
Okay, so he said tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king at meat. So obviously David being a captain, you know, at the new moon they had their little new moon feast, and around this time, top dogs got together and ate together. So that's what he's saying. I shouldn't fail. I'm expected to show up, in other words. Because he is a captain over 1,000, remember that. Go ahead.
But let me go, that I might hide myself from the field until the third day at even.
Mm-hmm.
If thy father at all miss me, then say, David earnestly asked leave of me that he might run to Bethlehem his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the family.
Okay.
If he say thus, it is well, thy servant shall have peace, but if he be very wroth, then be sure that evil is determined by him.
Okay, so David let him know. He said, look, I'm not going to show up for the new moon. I'm going to get little. I'm going to hide. And when your father recognizes I'm not where I would normally be, and he asks you, you tell him you let me go to Bethlehem. You gave me leave to go to Bethlehem. Now, if he cool with that and he's at peace with that, he said, then you right. But if he pissed, then you know he trying to do me in, bro. You finished verse 7?
Verse 7.
Did you finish verse 7?
Yeah.
Let's get down to verse 24 to save time and keep going.
So David hid himself in the field, and when the new moon was come, the king sat him down to eat meat.
Mm-hmm.
The king sat upon his seat, as his other times, and even upon his seat by the wall. And Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, and David's place was empty.
Mm-hmm.
Nevertheless, Saul spake not anything that day, for he thought something surely had befallen him. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean.
Okay, so David is obviously somebody that be where he's supposed to be. So Saul just assumed the first day, you know, he didn't came into contact with somebody he wasn't supposed to come into contact with. There's a lot of ways you could become unclean for 24 hours. There's a lot of ways. You could be out in the field and step on the wrong thing. You unclean for 24 hours. So Saul just chalked it up as that. He must be unclean. I killed that nigga tomorrow. That's pretty much what he thinking. You know what I mean? Surely he is not clean. Go ahead.
And it came to pass on the morrow, which was the second day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said unto Jonathan his son, Wherefore cometh not the son of Jesse to me, neither yesterday nor today?
Okay, now he know the rules of being unclean. That only lasts 24 hours. You do your little cleaning, you do your little washing. 24 hours, sun go down next day, you should be back down. So now that he ain't here for day 2 of the feasting, Saul is answering questions. So he asked him, he said, why wasn't he here? Matter of fact, he wasn't here yesterday. What's that about? Go ahead.
And Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem.
Then he said, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. Go ahead.
And he said, let me go, I pray thee, for our family hath a sacrifice in the city, and my brother, he hath commanded me to be there. And now, if I have found favor in thine eyes, let me get away, I pray thee, and see my brethren. Therefore, he cometh not unto the king's table.
Okay, so Jonathan gave him the script that David told him to give, just to test his father out and see where he at with it mentally. Go ahead.
Then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said unto him, thou son of the perverse, rebellious woman.
Damn. Go ahead.
Do not I know that thou hast chosen the son of Jesse to thine own confusion, and unto the confusion of thy mother's nakedness?
You see that? That boy hot. He is pissed. He said, then Saul's anger was kindled against Jonathan, and he said unto him, thou son of the perverse, rebellious woman, do not I know that thou hast chosen the son of Jesse to thine own confusion, and unto the confusion of thy mother's nakedness? Go ahead.
For as long as the son of Jesse liveth upon the ground, thou shalt not be established, nor thy kingdom. Wherefore now send and fetch him unto me, for he shall surely die.
What happened to as the Lord liveth, he ain't gonna die. See, now he done figured out, for the most part, Jonathan may be in league with David, and they avoiding him together. So now he's coming at Jonathan crazy.
And Jonathan answered Saul his father, and said unto him, wherefore shall he be slain? What hath he done?
Because David ain't did nothing. See, that's the worst thing about a hypocrite. In most cases, the person that they being hypocritical toward, they ain't did nothing to him. They just got their own personal issues. They got their own personal problems. They got their own personal demons that they're dealing with. And that be the case in most cases. Go ahead.
And Saul cast a javelin at him to smite him, whereby Jonathan knew that it was determined of his father to slay David.
Okay, go ahead.
So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger, and did eat no meat of the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David, because his father had done him shame.
You see that? So now Saul threw a javelin at Jonathan. Anybody can get it. You on his team, you can get it too. We on team hate David. If you ain't on team hate David, then the hell with you too. Son or no son. That's how people are in the world today. They'll cut somebody off because they're cool with somebody they don't care much for. That's foolishness. That's being a hypocrite. Well, what verse you just finished, my son?
That was verse 34.
Read verse 42.
And Jonathan said to David, go in peace, for as much as we have sworn both of us in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord be between me and thee, and between my seed and thy seed forever. And he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. Okay, so pretty much Jonathan told David, man, you might want to get up out of here. You right. Pops is tripping. You might want to get looked. And that's what David did, because they realized that Saul ultimately was trying to kill him. But see, Saul wasn't being open about it. He was being a hypocrite. He was operating in guile. He was saying one thing, but ultimately doing another. He was feigning religious, but ultimately going to do his neighbor some harm without a cause. That's being a hypocrite. But the way David handled it, he behaved wisely. He kept himself out of harm's way as much as he could. He didn't try to retaliate, and he let the Lord give him an escape. That's what the book lets you know. The Lord would always give you a way to escape. You just got to be patient and not try to do too much yourself. That's the best way to deal with a hypocrite in all situations. Let's go to, where was we at? Let's go to Psalms, the 35th chapter. Psalms, the 35th chapter. Psalms 35. And we're going to start reading at verse 12. Psalms, the 35th chapter. And we're going to start reading at verse 12. Psalms 35 and verse 12. When you get that, go ahead, my son. They rewarded me evil for good to the spoiling of my soul.
Mm-hmm.
But as for me, when they were sick, my clothing was sackcloth. And I humbled my soul with fasting, and my prayer returned into my own bosom. I behaved myself as though he had been my friend or brother. I bowed down heavily, as one that mourneth for his mother.
You see that? See, that's how you got to behave yourself. That's how you got to treat a hypocrite. You got to You got to still make peace with the hypocrite, because you ain't supposed to hate nobody in your heart, period. No matter how terrible they may be behaving towards you. If we'd have kept reading the story of David, the Lord put Saul in David's hands on 2 or 3 occasions where he could have killed him. Where he could have killed him outright. One time I know for sure he cut his skirt, and the other time he took his spear. But both times he let Saul make it. And the only reason they was crossing paths is because Saul is chasing him to kill him. But the Lord kept putting him in his hand. Kept putting Saul in his hand just to see how David would respond. One time, the time when David took his spear, it said the Lord put a deep sleep on Saul and all his soldiers. Well, David and Abishai was able to walk right up on him. Abishai, David's nephew, it said he was the son of Zariah. He told David, he said, he right here. Let me nail him to the ground. He throwing spears at you. He said, I'm only going to hit him once. He said, I won't hit him more than once. I'm only going to hit him one time. David was like, nah, we can't do that. We ain't going to be avenger of our own blood, and not to mention, he was the Lord's anointed. So David behaved himself wisely in all situations. Just like he's talking about right here. He said, I behaved myself as though he had been my friend or brother. I bowed down heavily as one that mourned for his mother. But this person is being a hypocrite, trying to do him wrong. Go ahead.
But in mine adversity they rejoiced and gathered themselves together. Yea, the abjects gathered themselves together against me, and I knew it not. They did tear me and ceased not.
And I knew it not, because they operating in secret. They operating in secret. That's why that's why a hypocrite will have you respond in a way that will get you in a lot of trouble. Because it's ultimately traumatizing. It's traumatizing. Go ahead.
With hypocritical mockers and feasts, they gnashed upon me with their teeth. Lord, how long wilt thou look on? Rescue my soul from their destructions, my darling from the lions. I will give thee thanks in the great congregation. I will praise thee among much people. Let not them that are mine enemies wrongfully rejoice over me. Neither let them wink with the eye that hate me without a cause.
You see that? Neither let them wink with the eye. So that what the wink with the eye mean is, yeah, they feign in friendship. They feign in friendship, but they ultimately hate you. But they're gonna give you all the signals that a friend would give. Kind of like Judas betraying Jesus. What did Jesus say? You gonna betray me with a kiss, nigga? Like, damn. They gonna feign friendship. They gonna feign brotherhood. They gonna feign all that. But when they get around their close familiars, see, then the truth comes out. That's when the truth comes out then. Because they're a hypocrite. Go ahead.
For they speak not peace, but they devise deceitful matters against them that are quiet in the land. Yea, they opened their mouth wide against me, and said, Aha, aha, our eye has seen it. This thou hast seen, O Lord. Keep not silence. O Lord, be not far from me.
You see that? Yea, they opened their mouth wide against me and said, Aha, aha, I have seen it. Yeah, they searching out your fault. See, when you make a mistake or you trip up, oh, it's a bulletin announcement. Brandon crazy. That's how they do it. They scream that from the rooftops. But they can be perverse. They can be wicked. They can be lustful. They can be all the above. But they're not going to speak that, though. Because they are truly a hypocrite. But you still have to behave a certain type of way because you don't want to fall into the same snare that they fell in. So you got to behave wisely. Let's go to Luke the 11th chapter. Luke the 11th chapter. And they come in all shapes and sizes. You'd be surprised who the hypocrite is around you. Because we read about Saul. He was the king. Luke the 11th chapter. And when you get there, start reading at verse 37. Luke 11 and 37. When you get there, go ahead, my son.
And as he spake, a certain Pharisee besought him to dine with him. And he went in and sat down to meat. And when the Pharisee saw it, he marveled that he had not first washed before dinner.
Okay, so now this is Jesus. He out there dealing with the Pharisees, the false prophets, the wicked Jews of his day. And I always thought that was dope. that how they would invite him on more than one occasion to come to their spots or come to their parties, and he'll show up. He don't like nothing about them, but he'll show up just to blow them. I always thought that was dope he did that. But guess what? That's open rebuke. I'm going to come to your house and tell you a piece of crap, and you need to get it together. I'm going to sit in your front room and tell you you're a sinner. That's what the master would do. Go ahead.
And the Lord said unto him, Now do ye Pharisees make clean the outside of the cup and the platter, but your inward part is full of ravening and wickedness.
You see that? He said, now do ye Pharisees, y'all make clean the outside. Yeah, y'all look real good on the outside. But your inside, your inside, what did they call it? He said, your inside is full of ravening, and wickedness. Go ahead.
Ye fools, did not he that made that which is without make that which is within also?
Read that again.
Ye fools, did not he that made that which is without make without that which is with also?
Okay, go ahead.
But rather give alms of such things as ye have, and behold, all things are clean unto you.
Mm-hmm.
But woe unto you Pharisees, for ye tithe mint and rule, or in all manner of herbs, and pass over judgment and the love of God. These ought ye to have done, and not to leave the other undone.
Let's get down to verse 52 and keep going.
And woe unto you lawyers, for ye have taken away the key of knowledge. Ye entered not in yourselves, and them that were entering, and ye hindered.
Mm-hmm.
And as he said these things unto them, the scribes and the Pharisees began to urge him vehemently, and to provoke him to speak of many things, laying wait for him, and seeking to catch something out of his mouth, that they might accuse him.
You see that? That's the whole thing. That was their whole point of getting them over there. So it said at verse 53, and as he said these things unto them, the scribes and the Pharisees began to urge him vehemently, and to provoke him to speak of many things. They throwing all type of topics out. He got to mess up somewhere. But Jesus the Master, he ain't messing up. He going to give you what the book say. Straight book, nothing else but the book. Only the book. He ain't got no personal feelings when it comes to how you should act or how you should behave. It was he already gave you the law. If the law say thou shalt not do, then thou shalt not do. There is no exceptions to the rule. Simple as that. But at the same time, they was trying to set a trap for him. They was trying to catch him in error so they have a reason to accuse him. That's what a hypocrite does. They would invite you in their company just to learn your weaknesses. That's what they do. Let's go to the 12th chapter of Luke and keep going at verse 1.
In the meantime, when they were gathered together an innumerable multitude of people, insomuch that they trode one upon another, he began to say unto his disciples, first of all, Beware ye the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. Beware
the leaven of the Pharisees, which is hypocrisy. See, they don't like me. It got me all in their crib at the party. They just trying to set me up. They're hypocrites. Go ahead.
For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known.
He said there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, because it's going to come out in the wash. Like even with Saul, it had to come out eventually. You keep making all these undercover moves, eventually it's going to come to light. It's going to come to light. So that's what he's saying right here. For there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that should not be known. Go ahead.
Therefore, whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear and closets shall be proclaimed upon the housetops.
See, because that's how hypocrites communicate. They speak in closets. They speak in the ears of people privately and secretly. They're not going to put it out in the forefront. They're not going to do that, because then they ain't better set a trap for you. That's the way of the hypocrite. But you can't get back. You can't go back and forth to hypocrite. You just got to make sure you cover your bases and you do the right thing, and you don't give them no reason to have a reason to accuse you. Let's go to Matthew the 7th chapter. Matthew the 7th chapter. Matthew the 7th chapter. And when you get to my son, start reading at verse 1. Matthew 7 and verse 1. When you get there, go ahead.
Judge not, that ye be not judged.
Judge not, that ye be not judged. Go ahead.
For with what judgment ye judge, ye shall be judged. And with what measure ye meet, it shall be measured to you again.
Mm-hmm. So then you know, if you're so busy recognizing and proclaiming the faults of others, the Lord going to take that same amount of energy to do the same thing to you. Go ahead.
And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but consider not the beam that is in thine own eye?
Mm-hmm.
Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote of thine own eye, out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye?
So what is he saying right there? You can pick out the smallest problem your neighbor, your brother, your sister got. You can see that a mile away. But behind scenes, you're a murderer. You're an adulterer. You're an idolater. You got big problems that you think you have under control. That's a hypocritical mindset. Because you're supposed to be examining yourself. Go ahead.
Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam of thine own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to cast out the mote of thy brother's eye.
Let's go to the 23rd chapter of Matthew. The 23rd chapter of Matthew. And when you get there, start reading that verse 24. Matthew 23 and verse 24. When you get there, go ahead.
Ye blind guides, will strain at a gnat and swallow a camel.
You see that? He said you strain at a gnat, but you'll swallow a camel. That's what I'm saying. So you'll make a big deal out of something big, but out of something real small or something real minute. But when it suits your interest, you'll swallow a camel. You'll take down a mule. Go ahead.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you may clean the outside of the cup and of the platter, but within they are full of extortion and excess.
You see that? But within they are full of extortion and excess. Go ahead.
Thou blind Pharisee, cleanse first that which is within the cup and platter, that the outside of them may be clean also.
Mm-hmm.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For ye are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones, and of all uncleanness.
Mm-hmm.
Even so, ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within ye are full of hypocrisy and iniquity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they're going to put up a good front. They're going to put up righteous intent, like Saul did. They're going to make their self be perceived a certain way in the public. But ultimately, they're full of wickedness. They're full of wickedness. Go ahead.
Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, because ye built the tombs of the prophets, and garnished the sepulchres of the righteous.
Let's go to 1 Peter, the 2nd chapter. See, Jesus didn't have no problem calling them on it, because he wasn't a hypocrite. And he was going to say it publicly. He wasn't going to say it in secret. He wasn't going to hide behind fake love and false intentions. 1 Peter, the 2nd chapter, and start reading at verse 1. 1 Peter 2 and verse 1. When you get there, go ahead.
Wherefore, laying aside all malice and all guile, and hypocrisies, and envies, and all evil speaking.
You got to put all that to the side. And what you got to do?
As newborn babes, desire the sincere milk of the word, that you may grow thereby.
See, but you got to put all that out your mind. See, you can't be going back and forth with a hypocrite. Or you can't be trying to go toe-to-toe with a hypocrite. Because the only way to do that is to be a damn hypocrite. There's no other way to do it. So you have to not get caught up in that. You got to better look past that and focus on the path that's in front of you, the work that's in front of you. Because you always going to have something to do. You ain't got to worry about nobody else. See, that's what hypocrites do. They always worried about somebody else and what they do. They ain't got time to worry about themselves because they always in your business. See, you don't need to do that. You don't need to get caught up in that. Let's go to Galatians, the 6th chapter. Galatians, the 6th chapter. Galatians, the 6th chapter. Because it's not saying a person can't make a mistake either. This is a good example of that. But it's the way to go about that as well. Galatians 6, and when you get there, hit verse 1. Galatians, the 6th chapter, and when you get there, start at verse 1.
Brethren, if a man be overtaken in a fault, ye which are spiritual, restore such in one in the spirit of meekness, considering thyself, lest thou also be tempted.
So you're supposed to also, if somebody do have a true problem or a real issue, it's the way you approach that, in the spirit of meekness. Because tomorrow that can be you. That's what he's saying right now. Go ahead.
Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ.
You say you bear one another's burdens. You don't expose your brother's burdens. You don't expose his secrets. You don't hold his secrets against him. No, you bear that with him. Go ahead.
For if a man think himself to be something, when he is nothing, he deceiveth himself.
See, and that's what you end up doing. You get to dealing with somebody else's issues or their problems or their lifestyle or whatever decision they make so much. You worried about them more than you worried about you. You thinking, you so busy in their stuff, you thinking you cool. And that's a problem. If you so deep into somebody else's business or their own actions or their actions, you obviously think you cool because you ain't worried about yourself. That's a hypocritical mindset. You need to fix that and get out of that. Go ahead.
But let every man prove his own work, and then shall he have rejoicing in himself alone, and not in another.
You see what I'm saying? Then he shall have rejoicing in himself alone. That's what you should have rejoicing in. You should be having rejoicing in the downfall of somebody else. But people like that though. Go ahead.
For every man shall bear his own burden.
Mm-hmm.
Let him that is taught in the word communicate unto him that teacheth in all good things.
Mm-hmm.
Be not deceived. God is not mocked. For whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap.
That's what they say. A hypocrite time is their time ain't but for a moment. That's what we read in Proverbs. They don't get a long time to be happy or rejoice in their foolishness. That's only going to be a second. And that's what that foolishness is going to turn right back on. That's going to turn right back on. Let's go to Romans, the 2nd chapter. Romans, the 2nd chapter. Romans, the 2nd chapter. Romans 2. And when you get there, start reading that verse 1. Romans, the 2nd chapter. And when you get there, start reading at verse 1.
Therefore, thou art inexcusable, O man, whatsoever thou art, thou judgest, for wherein.
Start that over again.
Therefore, thou art inexcusable, O man, whosoever thou art that judgest, for wherein thou judgest another. Thou condemnest thyself, for thou that judgest doest the same thing.
You see that? He said, whoever judging, you judging yourself because you got your own problems. You doing the same thing. You sinning too. You ain't without sin. All have sinned and come short of the glory of God. So I can't sit here and get caught up in my brother's sin right there and be overly inflamed with that. I got my own stuff I got to worry about. I can try to help him with his, cover it up, because that's what the Bible says a friend do. He covers the matter. He don't expose the matter. He covers it. And you try to help him get through it. That's what he's saying. But if you're judging and you're doing the same thing, you just condemning yourself. Because now you're sitting there saying you perfect and you got it together. When, like, what are you doing? You are ultimately one of them whitest sepulchres that Jesus was talking about. You faking clean on the outside, but inside you hella wicked. Hella wicked. Go ahead.
But we are sure that the judgment of God is according to truth against them which commit such things.
Mm-hmm.
And thinkest thou this, O man, that judgest them which do such things, and doest the same, thou shalt escape the judgment of God?
You see that? He said, and thinkest thou this, O man, that judgest them which do such thing, and doest the same, that thou shalt escape the judgment of God? So you're doing the same thing he do. You've made the same mistakes. You've been down the same path. But you're going to hold him to the flame. You're going to set him up for failure. You're going to set him up for to be mocked and talked about. You ain't going to, God going to deal with you. And you better hope he deal with you in this life. Go ahead.
Or despisest thou the riches of his goodness and forbearance and long suffering, not knowing that the goodness of God leadeth to repentance.
So the goodness of God leadeth to repentance. So you just gave up the fact that the Lord gave you time to get it together. And you still ain't got it together because nobody has it together. But now you want to close the book on this brother or this sister. You want to deliver him up to Satan. You know, that is a hypocritical mindset. Go ahead.
But after thy hardness and a penitent heart, treasurest up unto thyself Wrath against the day of wrath and revelation of the righteous judgment of God.
You see that? He said all you doing is up saving yourself up more whoopings from God. Wrath against the day of wrath. You just getting yourself in more trouble. See, that's why when you dealing with a hypocrite, you ain't got to go back and forth and be a hypocrite to get even. That's the only way to battle a hypocrite is to sink to his level. To sink to his level. And you got to understand, the Lord see that and he hate that. Go ahead.
Who will render to every man according to his deeds.
Mm-hmm.
To them who by patient continuance and well-doing seek for glory and honor and immortality, eternal life.
Okay, let's go to 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter. 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter. 1 Corinthians 13. And when you get there, we're going to read one verse. Verse 5. So we can't be judging nobody else, so caught up with somebody else. You know, like we the most righteous person on the planet in the most part. And ultimately, we can't be operating from a position of guile and giving our brother or sister the wrong idea of friendship or love. Those are two ways of being a major hypocrite. And when you're dealing with that, you got to let them be. Let them work that out, because they are angering God in such a way you don't want no parts of it. 2 Corinthians, the 13th chapter. 2 Corinthians, I'm sorry, I said first, didn't I? 2 Corinthians 13. And when you get there, read verse 5. 2 Corinthians 13 and verse 5. When you get there, go ahead.
Examine yourselves, whether ye be in the faith.
Examine yourselves, whether ye be in the faith. Because just because you think you in the faith, don't mean you in the faith, people. Just because you know a little bit or you show a little bit, that don't mean you doing this thing right. You got to constantly examine yourself, constantly pick your own brain or run through your own thought process and make sure that you know you are still getting better, because we all work in progress. Read that verse again, I'm sorry.
Examine yourselves, whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves, how that Jesus Christ is in you, except ye be reprobates.
And when you stop examining yourself, you're a reprobate. So always keep that self-examination process going on a daily basis. Always. Don't never get too puffed up in yourself to think that you ain't got to do that. 1 Corinthians, the 4th chapter. 1 Corinthians, the 4th chapter. And when you get there, start reading that verse 4. 1 Corinthians 4. And when you get there, start reading at verse 4.
For I know nothing by myself, yet am I not hereby justified. But he that judges me is the Lord.
So you ain't got to worry about, if you're dealing with hypocrites, or you're dealing with somebody that's coming from a hypocritical mindset and all in your business and all trying to tell you what's wrong and what's right in your life when they life be in shambles any damn way. He said, for I know nothing by myself, yet am I not hereby justified, but he that judgeth me is the Lord. The Lord is your judge.